If you're seeing email open rates under 30%, then the problem is not your creative, it's not your copy, it's your deliverability. Now, usually when a brand sees their email revenue decline, the first thing that they think to do is change the creative or start spamming discounts. But in a lot of cases, the issue isn't the actual email that you're sending, it's the fact that simply nobody is seeing it. And that's where deliverability comes into play, and that's why it's so important. So if you're struggling to get your emails out of spam, you're seeing very low open rates, low engagement rates, then you need to improve your deliverability, and this video is going to explain how. And the best bit is that this is not particularly hard. It's not super complicated. Once you understand it, you can do this quite easily yourself, but it's just a case of following the fundamentals, doing the basics consistently, and then you'll be fine. So this video is going to encapsulate a step-by-step breakdown of how you can rebuild your sender reputation and start hitting the inbox more. So I've got my trusty whiteboard here so that I can show you that I know exactly what I'm talking about, which I'm going to use in a minute. But before we get started, I want to talk about why exactly inboxes judge you, like how they judge you, for example. So inbox providers, kind of similar to the way that Google wants to be this platform where they provide relevant and accurate information, and they prefer you to do the white hat techniques and they punish you if you do the black hat techniques with SEO. Inbox providers are the same. They want to protect their users. They want to make sure that it's a pleasurable experience, that they're not dealing with spam senders all the time, and that when they open their inbox, there's things in there that they actually want to read, so that they spend more time using the actual email rather than leaving it because there's too much crap in there. So these inbox providers are not reading your copy. They're not looking at whether you've got a nice design in the email. They're watching for certain behavioral signals to determine and give you a sort of invisible score as to whether or not you're a reputable email sender. So the things that are positive then are things like your opens, your clicks, people replying to the email as well. All of those are positive things. These are the positive things that inbox providers are looking for to give you that invisible score that will increase your score. First one is opens, and we've got clicks, and we've got replies. Those are your main ones there. You've got your opens, your clicks, and your replies, and then there's certain others as well that do make a difference but are less important. So those less important ones, can you see this? Yeah. Include adding your emails to their folders, so like saving those emails. Those are the main 4 things that you want to be doing. So we do this for all of our clients where we're signed up to all of the lists and we make sure that we're opening them, that we're clicking them, sometimes we reply to them, and all of them we add them, we save them to our own internal folders as well. So all of this is sending positive signs to the inbox provider to say that this person who is sending these emails is a reputable sender because they're getting more opens, more clicks, more replies, etc. The one that makes the biggest difference from what I've seen is this. If you can get people replying to your emails, it will massively increase your deliverability score. Okay, the next thing is the negatives, the things that are going to negatively affect your deliverability score. So similar to the positives where you've got opens, clicks, replies, etc. First of all, not getting those things. So not getting open, not getting replies, not getting clicks. So that's your first one. No opens, no clicks, no replies. The next that you're probably familiar with, and the most obvious one, is spam. So somebody marks your email as spam because you've sent them too many emails, or maybe you've emailed them without their consent because they inadvertently signed up to your list. They didn't give you proper consent. That's another video, but that can happen. And then the final one, I think it's the final one, is bounces. So bounces are really bad for your deliverability, and there's 2 types of bounce, but again, we don't need to go into that. The whole point is that for whatever reason, you've sent somebody an email and that email has gone to be delivered into their inbox, but it's failed. The delivery has failed. And it can happen for a number of reasons. Maybe their email address that they gave you is wrong, in which case that's on the user's fault. It could be that their inbox is full, again, user's fault. It could be that your records, your DNS records are not aligned. I'll go into that in a bit more detail, but there's a number of reasons why this can happen. And the final thing is, of course, kind of similar. It's when they do something like this. They don't open, they don't click, they don't reply. They mark it as spam, or instead they just don't open it, don't click it, don't reply, and then they delete that email. So these are all the things that are negative impacts on your deliverability. So I want you to imagine that you're making a big cocktail of your deliverability score and you're taking in how many of these things you got and then how many of the positives you got, and then amalgamate all that together, and that will decide what your score is out of 100, for example. And it's not just an all or nothing thing as well. It's not like you get too much of this and then you go straight to spam. Sometimes you might start building more and more of these things up where less people open your emails, and then the chances are you get put into the promotions tab more often. And then if you really start doing a lot of these things very often, or a lot of these things keep on occurring, that's when you go into the spam folder. So the best way to think of this is like a credit score. So imagine people who are consistently opening your emails, that's like you're consistently making payments on time. People who are bouncing, so they're not even getting your emails, that might be where you miss a payment, for example. Spam complaints might be going into your overdraft. You get the point. Like, you want to make sure that you're doing as few of these as possible and as many of the positives as you can. So now I want to talk about why your engagement decays. Like, what are the actual things that you're doing that make these things happen? So let's talk about a few of those. All right then, so what you're doing wrong, the first thing that most people do is they send to the full list. Send full list. So the more you do this, the more first of all, you're generalizing an entire message to an entire group of people. So not everybody cares that you've got a new product. For example, your customers, your VIPs, the people who spend a lot of money with you, they will be raving fans of your business. They'll love the fact that you've got a new product. The people who are on there who bought your product but they refunded it or they cancelled the order, they don't care about the fact that you've got a new product. They didn't even like the first one. The people who are on your list but they've never purchased, they still don't really have a reason to buy from your brand, and the chances are it's not because it's product related, but more about actual wondering if you can solve their problem, if you're a reputable brand. Could be a million reasons, another video, but that's one of the biggest mistakes that we see, is you're blasting your entire list with a lot of different types of people who are in different stages of the customer journey, and it's a bad idea. Long story short, don't do it. So another part that I kind of missed out there is that you're not carrying out any list hygiene. So that means that you've got people on your list who are unengaged, they're not really opening and clicking your emails, which means that whilst you've got some people in there, maybe 40, 50, 60% of them are clicking regularly, you might have a large amount of people who are actively not engaging with your emails, and that drags down your overall open rates and click rates, and therefore your deliverability score. All right, so you're not cleaning your list, basically. That's number 2. All right, the third reason might be that your DNS is not aligned. DNS, not. I'm just going to put active. So your DNS, what is that? I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail, but long story short, you need to have some records on your domain, on your website and on your email that connect up to show that you are the same person. So believe it or not, you can send emails from other companies' domain. Like, for example, you could send from Coca-Cola if you wanted to, but none of those emails are going to work. They're not going to go through. Somebody could effectively do that to your company because you don't have this in place. So this is very important. Long story short, it means that if you don't have it in place, then people can pretend to be you. It's called spoofing. So they can pretend to be you, and they can use your domain for whatever it is that they do. I have no idea why they're using it, to be honest, but people do that, and hackers, spammers, whatever it may be, they're just trying to push their own message out, and they will pretend to be you in order to do that. So if you don't have this, then these inbox providers think that you are one of those people. All right, number 4, a less common reason is your subject lines. Please forgive my handwriting, but you get the idea. So your subject lines, maybe they're very generic. If you're using ChatGPT for the majority of your subject lines, then they're probably going to be quite crap and quite generic, quite just not really invoking any curiosity, not giving people a reason to open. So make sure that you're really thinking this through, and do them after you've created an email. You've got the email, you know who you're sending it to, you know what the message is about, you've got the design ready. Do this last because it neatly sums up the purpose of the email. If you see it as like adding the ribbon on a present when you finally wrapped it and everything, and then you add the label of who it's to and the message afterwards, you wouldn't write a message on a present that you didn't know what was inside, if that makes sense. So do that last, and make sure that you're invoking curiosity, and that it's interesting. One more thing about these subject lines: not only do you want to make sure that they're actually engaging and not stale, but you want to make sure that you're avoiding the clickbait stuff. And I don't just mean that for protecting your own reputation in the eyes of your subscribers. So if you put clickbait stuff and people realize that it's not true, they're eventually going to stop opening anyway. But inbox providers actually punish you for using clickbait subject lines as well. So if you're using things like free money, open this now, click here, congratulations, you're a winner, blah, 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 blah. You've probably seen hundreds of those in your own inbox where they're doing phishing, right? Phishing with a PH, where they're trying to get you to click on something to then put a keylogger into your computer or steal some information or whatever it may be. So make sure that these are not only curious and interesting, but legit. So you want to make sure you're going just far enough to catch people's attention, not too far for the inbox providers to think that you're trying to scam them or something like that. All right, so these are some of the main reasons. There's probably a dozen more that I could go into, but I'm just going to stick to these for the sake of this video. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is what you can actually do. How can you clean your room, so to speak, to make it so that your emails start going into the inbox and avoiding the spam. Okay, so to do this, to demonstrate this, I'm going to just do the reverse of what I've put here. So the first thing is this. Do this one first, where you get your DNS records all set up, all authenticated. You need your DKIM, your DMARC, your SPF, possibly your BIMI as well, BIMI. That's like a nice to have one as well. But that needs to be the first thing that you do before you do anything, because if you don't have this, that's the biggest thing that's going to send you into the spam more than anything. So make sure you've got that set up. If you're using Klaviyo makes this quite easy to do because they have a very easy process for you to follow to take the records you need from there and add them to your domain. I'm not going to cover that exactly how now. Either find it out yourself on the internet, or I'll do another video some other time, or send me a message and I'll help you. But long story short, you need to have that first. All right, and then number 2 is this one here. So sending to the full list. The simple answer to how to not do that is don't do it, right? Just don't send to your full list. One of the tricks that we use for doing segmentation, if you're not familiar, it just means breaking up that full list into groups of people who are in different stages in the customer journey. That's the simplest way to explain that. One of the ways that we do this, rather than sending a email and thinking, right, what do we want to send and who do we want to send it to, instead say, who do we want to send this to and what do we want to send? So you reverse that process, and then in your mind, you've got in your picture of the person you want to talk to. So might be a customer, might be a very high value customer, might be somebody who's never bought before, it might be somebody who bought and didn't like your product, somebody who bought and did like your product. There's so many different ways you can slice this. So don't send to your full list, think of a segment first. Build 10, 20 segments. There's a guide somewhere on my website. I'll put it in the description for how to segment your list as well. And then you're only sending to people who are actually interested in the content you're creating. And that is the difference between getting very low open rates and very, very low click rates, and actually the opposite. So do that. All right, next thing you want to do, again, similar to the first one, is to actually clean the list. So I do this afterwards, or you probably should do this second. Actually, I should have done that second. Do this before you actually start sending, because long story short, you need to identify who your unengaged profiles are. Now you can build that segment, again, it'll be in the segmentation guide. You want to build that segment first thing so you know who are engaged and who are not. And then the majority of the emails that you send, whatever it is, you want to exclude the people who are unengaged in your email list, because like I say, they drag that metric down. So find out who they are, build that segment, and exclude them from the majority of your sends until your deliverability goes up. There's also another thing that you should do, not just related to people who are unengaged, but also people who have bounced recently. So I said before, there's 2 types of bounces. There's hard and there's soft. People who hard bounce, you don't need to worry about that. Klaviyo will automatically remove them. But the people who soft bounce, you need to identify who those people are, because they get, I think, 7 chances. So if they soft bounce 7 times, then Klaviyo will remove them from your email list. But if these people are, if they're walking very quickly towards those 7 bounces in a row, if a lot of people are doing that frequently, that's really going to tank your deliverability. So when you're cleaning your list, identify who the unengaged people are and who have recently soft bounced on your website, on your email list, and you want to exclude those 2. Subject lines, this one's fairly straightforward. I mean, I think I covered it pretty easily before. Like I say, Try and avoid using ChatGPT unless you're going through many rounds of revising those subject lines, because otherwise it's just kind of generic. Don't use too many emojis. I tend to stick with one, just in general. It's a nice way to break up the text and also kind of stand out in the inbox. You'd be surprised very few, well, not very few, but not so many people use emojis as you would expect. So use emojis, make sure it's not the clickbait stuff that I mentioned before. There'll be a list somewhere on Google, or you can ask ChatGPT what's an example of clickbait subject lines not to use. And then, yeah, just make sure that you're doing this at the end and that it makes sense. And one of the best things that I've found as well, actually, is including the person's first name in the subject line. So use the coding from Klaviyo. Again, you can find that somewhere on Google, so that you're actually saying their name in the subject line. In fact, 99% of the time, all the split tests that we've conducted, whenever we've used somebody's first name in the subject, it's always increased the open rate. So there's a nice little bit of alpha for you there. So give that a try and see what happens. So now that you know the things that are positives for deliverability, the things that are negatives, and what you're doing wrong versus what you need to do, I'm going to explain what it's like to actually go through a recovery process. So usually takes weeks as a minimum, and it can take months. I've seen some accounts not even improve after 6 months of doing this. It really depends on how bad your score is. But let's say that you're not a blacklisted domain. Let's hope not, because then it's very difficult, if not impossible, to come back. But let's just say you've been neglecting your deliverability and now you want to actually start working on it to get it into a good position within, let's say, 3 months conservatively. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure you've got this DNS aligned. Make sure you've got your DKIM, your DMARC, your SPF, BIMI if you want. But those are the first three, and the most important things that you must have in place before you send another email. Do not send an email until you have that in place. Don't send an email until you have it. All right, that's the first thing to do. The next is then to clean your email list. So identify who's unengaged, identify who's bounced recently. Take those people and exclude them from your sends. Do not send to those people until your score has gone back up. Otherwise, you're just going to tread water. You're not going to move anywhere. Once you've identified those weak links, let's call them, the next thing you want to do is stop sending to your full list and start segmentation. So actually identify who you want to send to first and then start doing it that way. However, for the sake of this, because you're trying to boost your deliverability, you want to ignore segmentation and only send to your engaged segments. So those are the people who've opened an email or they've clicked an email in the last 30, 60 or 90 days. So when you're dealing with a poor deliverability account, you want to find the people who are the most engaged or most likely to engage with your emails. So build a segment for the people who've opened or clicked in the last 30 days and send only to that segment for the next week or two, depending on how many campaigns you send. Don't go crazy, of course, but you want to start with that segment. And then as you see your deliverability start to rise, then you can expand the amount of people that you send to. So again, inbox providers will take into account volume, but at the same time, if you're demonstrating many positive signals, many opens, or let's say fewer non-opens, fewer non-clicks, fewer non-replies, non-marks of spam, no bounces, if you're showing fewer and fewer of those signs, then slowly but surely your snowball of deliverability is going to start to build. So that's what you need to do. So start with the small engaged and then widen it to the bigger engaged segments. And then over time, you will start to build a deliverability score. And then you can start being a bit more risky and sending to those unengaged, mainly just the unengaged people, to try and revive them, to try and get them back, because you don't want to get rid of them because there could be a lot of money in that list. But in order to get your deliverability score back up, start with engaged and then take it from there. And then the final thing, of course, is just get your subject lines on point. This is the easiest one. Just don't send people spammy clickbait subject lines. Make sure that there's an inkling of intrigue in those subject lines, and make sure you're using preview text as well. So preview text is, you've got the first line, that's your subject line, and the second is your preview text. So make sure they match. Make sure that you're doing them at the end of the email so that you're clear on what the content is, that it matches it, that it sets the right expectation for when people go to open it. And then people will start to trust you. They won't expect in their inbox. Not to say that you've been doing that, but that can happen if your subject lines don't match the actual content that you're sending. And I'm going to give you one last thing for the road because it's just popped into my head. So these are my favorite thing to do with any client that we're working with, not just because they're good for deliverability, but they're great for branding purposes, I believe, as well. And that is plain text. Plain text emails. So they are exactly what they say on the tin. There's no logo, there's no nice images, nothing about your product, literally just text. So the same way that you would email a friend or you'd email your landlord or whoever it might be, you need to just use text. Two reasons. The first is that they're really good for deliverability. So when you send these big, beautiful emails with 10 gigabyte images and whatever, they take forever to load and they take forever to send as well across to the user. Because think about it, the bigger the file that you're sending across the internet, the longer it takes. The longer it takes to load, and the fewer people who are actually going to sit there and wait for this beautiful image that you spent hours creating to load. Most people's attention spans are not going to pay any attention to it. When you're designing emails, you need to keep them small in size. So check the actual size of the imagery that you're using, but also you want to leverage some of these plain text emails because they have more chance of getting past the issue of sizing of the email. That's the first thing. The second thing is that these build a really nice affinity with your audience. I think I've done another video. If not, I'll do one at some point. But imagine if you're buying from a company and it's a small business, and rather than just constantly getting spammed with nice, pretty, polished design emails, you get one from the founder who's sharing their story or trying to connect with you or whatever it may be. It just separates you. It cuts through that marketing noise from all the other rubbish design, not rubbish, but you get what I mean. If you look at your inbox, chances are the majority of them are just design-based stuff. Send some plain text, give it a try. Okay, I think I've made my point. I think you've got a good idea of why your emails are landing in spam, how it all works behind the scenes. Hopefully you don't think that this is that difficult, because like I say, it really isn't once you kind of deal with this regularly. Follow this playbook and you're pretty much golden. Again, the biggest thing to stress here is patience. Don't try and rush this in 2 weeks. Don't even try it in a month. It might take you 2-3 months. Might take you longer, unfortunately. But as soon as you try and rush this and force it, you're going to go right back to square one. So follow these things, be patient, be consistent, and you'll be fine. Okay, I hope you like the whiteboard. I've just christened it. This is the first video that I've done using it. I actually quite like it. Let me know if you liked it. I don't know, I think it makes things a lot clearer. But yeah, so that's why your emails are landing in spam. If you want us to come and fix it, Shawfire, then drop a message below in the comments. If not, check out the description. I'll put some stuff about deliverability, segmentation, etc. You might need to sign up to my email list to get them because they shouldn't be free. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then drop a like on it or subscribe for more. Thank you.